great to be in the house of the Lord. And as I always say when I come back to Monongahela, it's always good to be home. It's wonderful to be here today. And I don't know about you, but the Spirit of God is moving this morning. Amen? I hope you feel it. And I can say for a surety that I feel it here this morning. I felt it since we did Sunday school with Brother Dan, and when we talked about feet washing, and it kind of, and he even made a statement that it was kind of like, okay, everything clicked of what was given to me this week. So we're going to see what the Lord has in store, but ultimately at the end of the day, we want to be fed. That's why we're here this morning. We want to get closer to the Lord. We want to be closer in that we might be able to be better servants every day as we take our walk with Him. You know, many of us have heard the story, Nephi's dream, or Lehi's dream, and then Nephi was able to see what his father saw, and how he saw the straight and narrow path. And we start on that path when we go into the waters of baptism. We heard about our three young people. God bless you. We'll be praying for you these couple of weeks. I know that's going to be hard to wait. Been there, done that. I had to wait a week. Not a couple of weeks, but I had to wait a week. But we'll be praying for you. But you start that journey. And the end of that journey is when we make it to the kingdom of heaven. We make it to paradise. And so we wait, when we take those steps, and it's one step at a time. One step at a time. And we get better every day. We get stronger every day. We get better every day. And that's why we're here this morning. So we might be able to be stronger with the Lord. The thought that was given to me this week was the restoration. And, why we do what we do as a church. I mentioned it this morning. We do what we do because that's what Jesus did, right? And, the apostasy and the restoration, that's a really different thing to the world. The world doesn't recognize that there was an apostasy, right? They feel Jesus came, Jesus set up the church, and it's been the same the last 2,000 plus years, right? I was invited to a kind of like I would say it was kind of equivalent to our MBA, right? But I was invited to like a Bible study with a group of young people. This was probably 10, 15 years ago, so semi-young people, right, so to speak. And young adults talking about scriptures, and it was of a different faith. And I just asked them, I said, what is it that you are looking towards next? What's the next big thing? What's the next big thing we're looking for? We're looking for Zion, right? We've been taught all of our lives about looking towards the restoral of Joseph and the gathering of the house of Israel in Zion. And so I'm curious what they're looking for, right? They're looking for the second coming. They said second coming of Christ. And I went, oh, okay, so you're not looking for Israel to be gathered or anything like that. Nope. Second coming of Christ. Oh, okay, fair enough, right? There's a lot of things that got to happen before that, but okay, fair enough. But the scriptures, and sometimes when we talk about these things, we got to fight with one arm tied behind our back a little bit, right? Because we'll get to the Book of Mormon in a minute. But it's like they want to throw this out the window. Okay, well, let me have a conversation with somebody. Because if you have a conversation, and we are those people that are going to have the conversations. It's not just this group of men up here. We aren't the ones that just, okay, you got to be an elder to go talk to somebody about church. We all do that. You might have family members who say, well, why do you do this? We're going to do a very peculiar thing this afternoon. We're going to do feet washing this afternoon. There are not a lot of people in this world that practice feet washing. So you might have family members going, what are you doing? Well, you're going to get down in front of somebody and you're going to wash their feet and you're going to pray. What is that? Right? So you have an opportunity. There's that open door, right? When somebody asks you, and I've done this a bunch of times, Lord, you got to open the door, right? Lord, you got to give me the words to say. You open that door and I'll walk through it. And we're having a conversation with something and somebody asks a question. Guess what? That door just got thrown wide open. Now it's up to you. You're going to walk through it? Are you going to talk about it? Or are you not? Right? But it's our responsibility as members of the church, as believers in Jesus Christ, as members of the gospel restored, that the only way it's going to go out is if we talk about it. And so we got to be ready. Why do we believe there's a restoration? I remember one time I was in high school. I love the guy, but he joked with me all the time. And he said to me one time, he goes, well, what religion are you? And I said, well, Church of Jesus Christ. Well, what is that, right? Because, is that Baptist? Is that Catholic? Is that Methodist? What is that? And I said, well, if you want to put a big kind of broad frame on it, it's restoration. He goes, what do? Pull a 57 Chevy up there and work on them on Sunday? I was like, no. And he's laughing, right? I was like, no. But the restoration, well, if it's restored, it had to go somewhere, right? It had to be taken away. So there's many scriptures on this, but I'm just going to use one. In 2 Timothy, in the 4th chapter, there's 2 verses, verse 3 and verse 4. And Paul, in his writing to Timothy, says, "For the time will come when they will not endure sound doctrine, but after their own lust shall they heap to themselves teachers having itchy ears. And they shall turn away their ears from the truth and shall be turned unto fables." So Paul's prophesying. He's telling Timothy, this is going to happen. The world is going to turn away from the truth. Now, some, I think, at some point in time probably did turn it away because there was some sort of gain for them, some sort of worldly gain. But a lot of times things get changed for the greatest of intentions. Have you ever heard that before? Oh, I had great intentions of making this decision, right? And there was something that somebody didn't see called unintended consequences. And so things changed with the church. After Christ came, Christ dies, resurrects, and the apostles are in charge. And it's the church of Jesus Christ. I stand before you this day. At that moment in time, the church that existed was the same one that we're in right now. The exact same thing. And over time, that changed. And that's not putting anybody down, that's history. We can go and look in history books of how things changed. And that's why you see all the splinters that you see throughout history in Christianity. Christ didn't come and set up umpteen different things. He set up one. His way. Right? That's in the Gospels. My way. Follow me. He didn't say, well, follow me, but, kind of go left or right here and there. Maybe you get back together. I don't know. So that's what Paul's talking about here. And so we knew this. We knew this was going to come. But if it had to go away, it had to come back, right? There was a prophecy about it coming back. And again, several scriptures about that, but what was given to me this week was in Revelation. In the 13th chapter of Revelation. And in Revelation, John is giving this vision, and there's a lot of symbolism in here, right? But in the first, and I don't want to read it verbatim per se, but in the beginning of in the whole 13th chapter, John talks about this woman that he sees, and he talks about this dragon that he sees. And this woman is pregnant, and she gives birth to a son. And that son is taken back to heaven. God takes that son back, is what John sees. And the woman flees to earth. I'm paraphrasing this, obviously. And the dragon, it is said that, that's Satan, right? And he is trying to harm the woman. And we're like, okay, so what's all this mean? The woman is the church. Dragon is Satan. And the baby is the priesthood authority. And it says in jump to the verse, let me find it real fast, the 1260 days. I had it and it went away on me. I apologize. In the 7th verse it says, "It was given unto him to make war with the saints and to overcome them." It was talking about the dragon, and all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, whose names are not written in the book. Oh, I missed it, I apologize. But it was 1260 days that this was supposed to go away, which was years. So the church goes away and is hidden for that long. And so it goes through that. I think I actually missed the chapter. I apologize. It's 12. Sorry, brothers. So one of the brothers was probably waiting to jump up on me and say, it's 12, not 13. Sorry about that. Brother Dan, you edit that out of the video later on, and so it's 12. Right? I don't want my presiding elder in Fort Worth going, what the heck's he talking about? But in the 12th chapter, I apologize. That's why I couldn't find it. See, we're human, brothers and sisters. We make mistakes, right? I will say that before you this day. But it says there in the 12th chapter, the 5th verse, and she brought forth a man-child who was to rule all the nations with a rod of iron. Ever heard of the rod of iron before? Talking about Lehi's dream, right? I mentioned a minute ago. And her child was caught up unto God and to his throne. And the woman fled into the wilderness, where she hath a place prepared of God, that they should feed her there 1,260 days. 1,260 days. Well, if we read in Daniel, days and years basically equal the same thing. And so it talks about, it says, in talking about the dragon prevailed not, neither was their place found any more in heaven. And the great dragon was called out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. And he was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. And he tried, and it says later on in 13, it says, and when the dragon, in the 13th verse, and when the dragon saw that he was cast into the earth, he persecuted the woman which brought forth the man-child. And to the woman were given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into that wilderness, going back to the couple of verses beforehand, into her place where she is nourished for a time and times and half a time from the face of the serpent. So if we do the math, 1,260 times and half a time, that's 3.5. How many days are in a year? That's where all that goes together. And if you look back, now see, we can look back at history and go, okay, well, how's all this work? The church is restored in 1830 minus 1,260. That's when the apostasy started. Give or take. And if we look back at the history of man at that point in time, all the things in the church that Christ had set up were all being changed, and that's when it all started to fall apart. Because man decided to do things their way. We can do it better. Christ set up baptism the way he did. Oh, no, we can do that better. Christ set up feet washing. No, we don't need to do that. Right? All these things that got set up that were plain and precious and simple got misconstrued and taken away. But John says in the 14th chapter, and I got this one highlighted so I won't screw it up. John says in the 14th chapter, in the 6th verse, and I saw another angel fly in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel, to preach unto them that dwell in the earth, and to every nation, kindred, and tongue, and people, saying with a loud voice, fear God, and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment is come, and worship him that made heaven and earth, and the sea, and the fountains of waters. Now, if the gospel wasn't gone from the earth, why would John see an angel flying through the midst of heaven carrying it? John, he saw the angel bringing it back. The priesthood authority coming back. It's real, brothers and sisters. The Lord took it away, took the priesthood authority away because things weren't going the way he wanted it to be. And finally, at his time, he brought it back to this earth in the latter days, that it might be established again. That all the other prophecies that we talk about, all the other prophecies written in the Book of Mormon, all the things about Joseph, and all the things about Israel could come to pass. Because they weren't going to happen without the priesthood authority of Jesus Christ. Man didn't have it anymore. They were trying to do things on their own. Oh, you got to go to school for this. You got to go to school for that. You got to do all these things. And they were missing the boat. Now, that doesn't mean that they didn't love the Lord. They were trying their best. Don't get me wrong. I'm not putting anybody down. But it wasn't what he wanted. You know, I tell people all the time, God is not going to make you do anything. He is going to direct you. He will open doors in front of you. He will hold your hand if you want, but he is not going to make you make the decision. There's that double-edged sword of free will, right? That goes all the way back to the Garden of Eden. They had the most beautiful place, right? There was no sin. There was nothing wrong. You can have anything that you want. Just don't eat that one tree. Don't eat that one fruit. Right? Which fruit did they eat? You know? Okay. But we knew, we read one of my favorite verses in the Book of Mormon is where Lehi writes to his children. He says, Adam fell that men might be, and men are that they might have joy. Because Jesus was from the beginning. He knew they were going to fall. But because of that, and because of Christ from the beginning, we have joy. We know the bad side, but we know the good side too. Before that, they didn't. But it goes, so the Lord is there to direct us. He'll take us where we go, but it's ultimately our decision. We decide. So we have to keep the gospel pure. There's a song in the Songs of Zion about that, right? Keeping the gospel pure. We don't want what happened here to happen again. We want to be used of God, right? Multiple times, just as an example, and this scripture was given to me this week as well, in the 14th chapter of John. We look at how things got changed, right? Well, there was all this other introduction of things in terms of, pray to this over here and you get help for this, or pray to this over here and it'll get help for this, or this saint or that saint or whatever, right? But multiple times Jesus says it, and what was given to me this week was the 13th and the 14th verses in John. And whatsoever ye shall ask in my name, and these are red letters. This isn't John writing it. It's not Peter saying it. It's Jesus himself being quoted. And whatsoever ye shall ask in my name, that will I do, that the Father may be glorified in the Son. If ye shall ask anything in my name, I will do it. Not Joe's name, not Bob's, not Rich's, not Peter's, not John, not any of the other apostles, not any of the other great men that lived in the scriptures. There's one name, and that is Jesus Christ. And that's what had to be restored. That's what had to come back. That He's the focus point. Now, that had to come back through the Book of Mormon, right? The Bible was around. The Bible is around in the book that I use, Revelation. We look at history. That made it by one vote. Man almost didn't even put that in. But the Bible was there. Why couldn't we just use it? Well, no, there had to be something different. There had to be something to bring back the fullness of the gospel. Because without that, it wasn't going to happen. And that's why God used Joseph Smith to bring that forward. To translate it from a language that had been lost to English so we could read it. And if you read this book, and I encourage you to read this book, if you've got thoughts about this, I don't know about that. I had somebody one time, many in this room probably heard the story, but I had a guy in college who was so concerned for my soul. He says, you're going to hell for believing that book. I remember one time he said he wanted to talk about it, and I remember testifying when I was younger, and I said, I was so excited, I'm going to talk about church, and I'm going to talk about the Book of Mormon. I was all excited, and I said I had to strap on the helmet and play in shoulder pads and play defense. I wasn't ready for that. The Lord taught me a valuable lesson that day, right? To be ready, how to talk about it. But this book fills in the plain and precious things that aren't necessarily in the Bible because man got their hands into it. You think about it. How many people have had their hands in this book over the years? One set of hands that was used by God to translate it so that we would have the fullness of the gospel of Jesus Christ. Together, go back to Ezekiel. Ezekiel says, two in, paraphrasing, both in my hand, together. The stick of Judah and his companions, and the stick of Ephraim and his companions. Will there be more? Yes, they'll come. But right now, this is what we have. We got to accept this first. So I always encourage people, read it. Pick it up, read it. Multiple times in the Book of Mormon, it says, you don't know, ask God. You don't believe me, ask God. And I say that today. Brother Rich Scallon used to always say that, do not take my word. He would always say that from this rostrum. I'll never forget that as a young child growing up. Don't take it from my word because I said it. Take it home and read it. Go home and read it for yourself. Ask God. Say, Lord, is this true? And what am I being told today true, or is he lying to me? Ask him. And he will give you what you need. The Lord will help in all ways, shapes, and forms. He gives us what we need in the moment that we need it. Does that mean we have struggles? Yeah, there's sometimes we've got to go through the fire, right? We've got to be purified. But I was listening recently. I saw one of the videos on YouTube of one of the evangelist meetings, and they were talking about the different miracles that took place, right, on missionary work. And Brother John Straccia gave his testimony on the miracle that happened in India. And I've always messed up that story, and I was glad that Brother John related it because now it's fresh in my mind. But Brother John, one of our evangelists from Michigan, is in India, in this village with about 140, 150 people. And they were talking about Jesus Christ and what Jesus can do. And this man in the middle of this village has his daughter who's never walked. She's 6 years old, never walked a day in her life. And he says, if this is Jesus is true, you make her walk. And Brother John said that all the faith just went out of him in the moment. And he just did not feel worthy, but the call was on him to pray for her. And he said to the brothers that were there, we got to pray first. We got to pray first. And they knelt down and he asked God for forgiveness. He says, you've got to help me with this. And in front of that village, he put the oil on her head. He prayed for her. And he picked her up by the hand and walked her down, like kind of down the aisle here, and walked her back. And this 140 people strong kind of thronged them because they saw the power of God right before their eyes. There was no denying it at that point. You can't deny what your eyes have seen. Today, people will tell you, don't believe what you're seeing. They could not deny it. You cannot deny the Spirit of God when you feel it and when you see it. If theoretically you could, but that's Lord, right? You see a little girl get picked up and she walks, and you saw how she was brought in and she was lame. And there were many other miracles that we talked about. I think it was Brother Clifton from Omaha said on that call at the same time he was there. And when he heard that, he goes, "Oh, we're gonna have a good night tonight. We're gonna have a good night tonight because God is going to show His power." And what I thought it was kind of like when I believe it was Elisha. I always get Elijah and Elisha mixed up. I apologize, but with the 400 priests of Baal, when they were like, "Oh, Baal is the greatest God," and all this, and he said, "Okay, set up your altar. Go ahead, set up your altar. We're gonna have a little test here. Put your altar here, and I'm going to build one too, and we're going to see which God takes care of the altar and brings fire down from heaven." He goes, "I'll let you guys go first." And they built the altar, right? And they prayed to Baal all day. And it says they even started to self-mutilate for kind of sacrifice, right? And nothing happened. And the prophet says, "Okay, I'll build my altar." And he goes, "Oh, go get some water. Pour it all over the altar. Because I don't want anybody to think I'm cheating." And he puts water all over the altar. And again, you try to light wood on fire that's soaking wet. It's not going to happen. They pour all this water on the altar, and he prays, and fire comes down from heaven and consumes the altar. And so he said to Israel, "Who are you going to believe now? Are you going to believe God, your God that brought you out of the land of Egypt? Or are you going to believe this false God that they just spent all day praying to?" Of course, they believe God of Israel. That's where we're at today. What are we going to believe? We going to believe the restored gospel or not? Now you're here today, that's a great thing, right? That's first thing. You're in the building. But now you've got the opportunity. We've got the opportunity when we have our family members who don't, right? We've got the opportunity to our friends when they ask us questions. You know, I said, when I related a story in Sunday school this morning, it was from a family member of a family member of one of the members asked me a question. And honestly, it was not necessarily an easy question to answer. And I just said, Lord, what do I say? And so I encourage you, if somebody asks you a question, ask the Lord, Lord, how do I answer this? And just as he gave the words to Peter, and he gives the words today to his ministry, he will give you the words to say. And that'll be the opportunity. And who knows, let the Lord take it from there. You just go in and say, I'm just a messenger. Right? If we take it from that and we go, I'm just the messenger, Lord, use me. Then you'll go from there. And you'll see the Spirit of God work. So I love you. God bless you. It's wonderful to see you. I always say, it's great to see all the kids, and it's like they're not little kids anymore. And that's wonderful, and we see that moving forward. And this branch is in great hands. So God bless you, and I love you.